Well, when that side kick to the knee doesn't work and the wrestler takes you to the ground and you're stuck down there, your principles go out the door. You're either going to be getting the hell beat out of you, or if you're smart, you've trained on the ground, you've acquired some skills. I mean, you might not be a black belt or even a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but at least you know how to deal with it. And 99% of the people out there haven't studied Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so you need to acquire those skills to deal with somebody who's going to tackle you.
Yeah.
A football player, a wrestler, some guy who did it in high school, and his first instinct is to take you down. How are you going to deal with that? If all you know how to do is kick, you know how to fight at one range.
But what's important is you have a stand-up game, a clinch game, and a ground game. And people need to start looking back more at the European martial arts. By that I mean boxing and wrestling, and at European heritage. Our stuff has always been more realistic. Everybody's caught up in Asian mysticism, and I'm not Buddhist, and I'm not Japanese, and I'm not Chinese, and I'll take boxing over any Asian martial art, with the exception of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's been modified by Brazilians of Scottish heritage. So people have to start looking in their own backyard.
We all get along really well. It's pretty unique in the fact that very few of the people that we have in the gym have any kind of friction going on between them, because we all think a lot alike, and the hard training kind of weeds out a lot of the people that you normally wouldn't want to have anyway. So we have a real common goal, I think, and a real common pattern of training and getting better and helping each other, and it's just a real dynamic way to train.
Coaching, what a coach is trying to do is a coach is trying to enhance an athlete's performance. A teacher disseminates a certain amount of information. A coach enhances performance, and that's a fundamental difference. To be a coach, you have to have experience in what you're talking about. It'd be hard to coach somebody boxing if you never sparred before. It'd be impossible for me to imagine teaching somebody Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, say getting an arm lock out of the guard, if you've never gotten an arm lock out of the guard in sparring before. So you have to have experience. You have to be able to notice what a person needs to get better. So that's awareness, ability to make somebody aware of how it is they need to get better. You need to move your hips this way. You need to keep this left hand up. When the guy comes in this way, you need to circle to the left, being able to problem solve. And then you have to make the athlete take responsibility for his own performance, take responsibility to make himself better. You can't make people better. I don't create fighters. I can teach somebody what it is they need to do, and then I can coach them and try and make them better at doing it, but I can't make them better. They have to take the responsibility themselves, and that's a big difference between some religious guru that sits on a high horse and disseminates information to people and then they just soak it up, and somebody that's actually down there in the trenches with the guys actually trying to make them better, and that's what we try and do.
The initial UFCs, and I remember watching the first UFC, I was a purple belt, and I had no doubt in my mind that Royce would win it. No doubt at all. And part of that was because no one in America had even seen Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at that time. And nowadays, everybody has seen it. So in terms of popularizing it, I believe it has. But I still feel that learning jiu-jitsu or any martial art is like learning a language. And you could think you kind of know the language because you know a few phrases here and there, but to actually know the language takes years and years. And of course, more is revealed all the time. You learn the innuendos of the language, how one word can mean something in this context and something in that context. And I think to just watch grappling or even take a few classes here and there and even know a few moves doesn't make you a grappler. Just like knowing a few words doesn't mean you speak that language. But definitely when everybody sees jiu-jitsu, just like when you hear a language that you're familiar with, you recognize it now. And it is definitely popularized Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
a teacher like pretty much gives you, this is how you have to do it, and you know, kind of sits there and, you know, step by step shows you technique or whatever, whereas a coach will just let you go and gradually adjust and change things. You know, it's more of a friend relationship than a subservient relationship. You know, or maybe I'm dropping my hands on my jab, Matt won't stop me go through the mechanics of a jab from the beginning. He'll just say, get your hand up, you know, and just work on it there. Little by little, he changes how it goes. And Coach fits more of athletic training than, you know, stagnant, still traditional martial arts training, and we definitely train athletically here.
And we've talked about Vale Tudo, and we've talked about the base. The base of the art, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is the most important thing. If the guy's got good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the other stuff, the hitting, all that's going to be easy. If you're relying on striking or sticking your thumb in his eye as your defense for ground fighting, you should take up firearms, because that's not going to work. You need to blend that in with your understanding of position. Okay? Well, there's a huge mental part to what we do, and a huge emotional part to what we do. And again, it's so hard to explain that in an interview. You'd have to actually try it out so you'd understand what I mean. But especially in the way we train, when you incorporate all the different ranges, the clinch, the ground fighting, the stand-up fighting is all available. It's not just one specific area. You have to be intelligent, because strategy becomes important in fights and in your training. And you have to be smart about it. You know, and an intelligent fighter is always going to have an edge over an unintelligent brawler. They're the guys that are always, you know, you see them fall eventually to a superior technician or to a bigger brawler. So intelligence is a huge part of what we do. So the first one is just like that first tape we talked about. Liveness is always the first thing that I'm always teaching wherever I go. And that's, I mean, anybody that's watched these tapes or been to one of my seminars or come to class has heard that over and over again. So that's kind of the main thing I want to get across. What I hope I get across in these tapes, maybe a little bit different from the first tapes, is that just because you're training alive doesn't mean you got to bash each other's heads in. Because one of the last remaining excuses people have for not doing things the way that I'm doing them is that it's too violent. And I think from what we've seen on the tapes and from the different people, and you've got Greg, who's 130 pounds, you've got women doing this, and you've seen Nathan and Robert and myself do it with each other and not kill each other. I mean, if it was that harmful, we couldn't do it every day, because I do this 6 days a week. You know, I'd be maimed all the time. So it can definitely be done. So I want to get the idea across that aliveness doesn't necessarily mean brutality, you know. It just means that it has to have that resistance, progressive resistance, timing, and motion.